Then we will start. So welcome everyone. Very happy to see that there is a big audience. Of course, it would have been nice also to have a real meeting. But the advantage of this session is, of course, that we can have participants also from different partner countries. So that is actually very nice. So the agenda of today is we have this welcome first, then there will be some presentations. The first presentation will talk about what is new and our ambitions for the new 5-year program. My colleague Kathleen will share some information then on the call the basic information with regard to the call. We will have a question and answer session. And hopefully, if we're on time, we can also have a very short break then to grab a coffee. And afterwards, we will move into the formulation guidelines and formats, also with a Q&A. And then my colleague, Evelyn, will say a word on coherence, synergy, complementarity, and priority and transversal teams and how to go about it. And finalizing again with a Q&A and the closing of the session. So let's hope that that we can. We will try to make sure that we keep our timing. That could mean that we cannot extend on certain Q&A sessions, of course. But first of all, presentation that I will give myself on the ambitions for the new Vlierues 5-year program 2022-2027, and some elements that are also new in this call. First of all, we're facing quite a lot of challenges, global challenges, climate crisis, sanitary crisis. We also believe that solutions are global, and actually that as higher education and science institutions, we can play an important role in addressing these challenges. And actually, for our new 5-year program, we placed Agenda 2030 and the SDG framework as central, and we believe that this universal nature of Agenda 2030 provides quite some entry points for higher education and science institutions to address also a number of challenges within their context. First of all, a broader understanding of sustainable development concepts and issues into the threefold mission of higher education institutions: research, education, and service to society, but also a stronger incorporation of concepts such as global citizenship, education, decolonization, and equal partnerships. And of course, taking into account the evolving world and the COVID crisis, which emphasized also the importance of digitization, data, and evidence-based work. So these are elements that we all take with us towards our future way of working, future approaches. So we also addressed a number of new priorities for future of Vlierues Higher Education Cooperation, and priorities for Vlierues as an organization are connecting for change. We want to connect more between the academic world and other actors, making sure that we can have also a stronger impact in terms of sustainable development and on partner country contexts. Also important is that we want to emphasize more the importance of valorization and collective learning. So these are 3 main priorities that we put forward for our next 5-year program. Then now, what is new also in relation specifically, and how did we deal with that in relation to these calls? I mean, we're putting, like I said, Agenda for Sustainable Development as central. We developed actually also a new theory of change, which is aligned with this Agenda 2030, new theory of change for Vlierues, but also per outcome. And what does that actually mean? Vlierues submitted a 5-year program based on outcome programs, and you could actually consider in this case, for instance, the SI and team projects are placed as an outcome within that framework. We will also strengthen further the integration of transversal themes, environment and gender, and other priority themes of the Belgian development cooperation. Also important for those that have been working with us for several years is that we are moving away from the country strategy approach. Of course, now that we put Agenda 2030 central, we're moving towards an SDG-centered approach. And actually, we will, in our way of working, dealing with the SDGs, we will work basically based on the SDG principles of leaving no one behind, multi-stakeholder partnerships and interconnectedness principles that you will see coming back in all the documents, in all the guidelines, and that will really be guiding us throughout the whole process. Like I said, we want to focus more on connecting for sustainable development change. This we want to do also we want to improve in making available platforms for interaction between science and society, international, global, local, with a variety of actors. And of course, the concept of synergy and complementarity in that remains a very important link to that. And my colleague, Evelyn, will have in her presentation, will go a bit deeper into that. But basically, of course, we refer to the joint strategic frameworks also at the Belgian level, whereby it's important to say that Vliegewes together with its sister organization on the French-speaking side, ARES, and with the Tropical Institutes of Medicine in Antwerp, engaged in a thematic joint strategic framework for higher education and science for sustainable development. Also, this is logical in a sense, because we believe that in that way, this is also an opportunity to work together towards the ambitions of Agenda 2030. Next to that, we continue to interact at the level of the partner countries in geographical strategic frameworks, where we interact with the other Belgian non-governmental actors, with local partners, and also with, of course, in those countries that Enabel and Bio is active, we also try to interact as much as possible with them and look for synergies and complementarities between projects. But Evelyn will talk a little bit more about the information documents that we created, also to provide some info on how a specific country deals with Agenda 2030 and what actors are present there. Also new in this context is the fact that we changed quite a bit our formats and guidelines. We're moving towards a more standardized approach, further simplification. Digitization should become possible via a new modular approach to the formats. And actually important there, I think many of you know that quite important in our way of working in the past was the project cycle management approach with the log frame. We're actually moving away from the log frame. We already worked with some basic theory of change concepts, but this is now really strengthened and systemized. We will be working with a number of standardized Vliegewes outcomes and project change domains that we call domains of intermediate change. Also, some updates and adaptations were made to the financial and scholarship guidelines, and but that will not be dealt with in detail today. Now, a short word on our revised theory of change, but then the connection between the revised theory of change and actually the SE and team projects. Here you have a visualization of this theory of change. You can see on the bottom that the theory of change is guided by the 3 SDG principles, leaving no one behind, interconnectedness, and multi-stakeholder partnerships that are actually integrated at all levels. We were working towards one overarching goal, which is sustainable and equitable development. And we do so via 3 impact areas. And the impact areas dealing with skilled individuals that act as global citizens, impact area dealing with knowledge-driven global partnerships, and then the third one, which is more about the applied solutions and evidence-based policies. Just below that, you can see that we also refer to our geostrategic framework for higher education and science for sustainable development, the one that is with ARES and ITM that I was talking about. Actually, there also we have 6 strategic goals, which which actually link very much with our own new 6 FLIRES outcomes. So I will not go into detail on the GSF, but our 6 standard outcomes are organized along 2 axes, the axis of individuals as agents of change and the axis of higher education institutions as driver of change. You will see in these outcomes that, well, some of the statements that are there might sound familiar, but I think we managed to organize this in a more systematic way, also showing the interaction between the different outcomes, such as, and between the axes of individuals as agents of change and the drivers. I think in particular for the SI and team projects, typically, of course, they deal with a number of these outcomes that is open, that can be differentiated. Some projects can focus on higher quality and inclusive education, which is, for instance, outcome 2. But there will also always be an element of uptake of dissemination knowledge, uptake of new knowledge, applications and services. So we expect that outcome number 5 will certainly also be important in most projects. And then a new outcome, which is actually there, is number 6, the one that I mentioned at the beginning, our ambition to strengthen knowledge-driven science-society interactions. My colleague Kathleen will go more into detail about the aim of the SI and team projects. Myself, I'm presenting only the way it is addressed in the theory of change. At the next level, the idea is that all FLIRES projects organize their intermediate changes, their results along 6 project change domains that are also reflected in the visualization. Those are education programs and methods, research programs and methods, networks and partnerships, people, outreach and policy support, and system policies and infrastructure. So this is in a nutshell, actually, the visualization. A bit more, yeah, like I said, team and SI, they are not expected to contribute with all of these standard outcomes. I mean, some people ask that, well, is it needed? No, typically they will address a number of outcomes. And like I said, outcome number 5 is one that, of course, we expect, because that is an important connection, of course, with the application and with the impact level. The visualization, if you want it more in detail, but basically these were some general concepts that I wanted to share with you before we go into the details of the call. And that details of the call are also actually all the information is actually available on our website. Hopefully you already had the possibility to have a look at it, but I will stop sharing my screen and then give the floor to Kathleen for her presentation.
Hello, everyone. So this PowerPoint is about basic information on the call for team and short initiatives. So what it's the aim actually of short initiatives? Actually, well, they try to explore, build and deepen balanced academic collaborations, which need to focus on a specific sustainable development challenge, thereby also strengthening the research and educational capacities and performance of the partner institution, and also creating the conditions for uptake, so that new and relevant knowledge applications and or services can be created. Some distinctive features about short initiatives and team. I will read this in a vertical way, so from the top to the bottom. The short initiatives are quite short, maximum of 2 years, with a maximum budget of 75 euros. They are easy in access, and actually they are particularly particularly addressed to young academics or academics that haven't submitted a project proposal before at VLER-US. So it's a nice way to get to know each other, actually. It allows for differentiated aims. It can be either exploration or valorization. Exploration if you want to try out something new, or valorization if it's something that already exists, but that you just want to valorize and see how it can make progress. And then the partnership can vary in terms of size and composition. Just a minute, please. Apparently, I was still on the previous slide, so sorry about that. So this was what I was talking about. I already gave the explanation for short initiatives. Now we come to the team projects. They have a maximum of 5 years, or they are longer term, with a maximum budget of 280,000 euros, but with the possibility of a top-up of 20,000 euros if you can involve different higher education institutions in your project. So your medium term. And actually what we see is that quite a lot of teams have, if not most of them, have, do PhD research. So they actually focus on some research questions through PhDs, curriculum development, network building, also focus on structural research and educational cooperation. So they go a step further than the short initiatives. Team projects can also pursue improved organizational systems, processes, and structures. Now, the short initiatives, for who are they? Or the teams, for who are they? So the Flemish promoters need to be either a professor, lecturer, or a specialist at a Flemish university or university college. And the partner promoter needs to be employed at a recognized higher education institution or national public research institute. And this, of course, in one of our partner countries. We have additional criteria, that is that applicants can have a maximum of 2 ongoing short initiatives or team projects, which means that they can submit a maximum of 2 projects in case they have no ongoing projects after the 1st September 2022. At the level of the partner institutions, there are no further restrictions. So who are our partner countries? We have 17 in total. For Africa, these are Benin, Burundi, DR Congo, Ethiopia, Kenya, Morocco, Rwanda, South Africa, Tanzania, and Uganda. For Latin America, those are Bolivia, Cuba, Ecuador, Peru. And for Asia, they are Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. So how to submit? You have to be both a Flemish and a local promoter, but it's the Flemish promoter who submits to the ICOS of the Flemish University or Association for the quality control. And then the ICOS will validate and submit to VLER-US. And how to do so? It happens through an online platform. But you will be given some more explanation on it in the next slides. So the assessment, we have 2 separate calls, a short initiative call and a team call. They will also get a separate selection. For the short initiatives, we think, well, we have a budget for indicative 29 projects, and for the teams, we have an indicative budget for 39 projects. All projects proposals will be assessed and selected based on 4 standard selection criteria, which are relevance and coherence of the project, quality of the project design, implementation, setup of the project, and potential impact and sustainability. And the project proposals are assessed by regional selection commissions, so one for Africa, one for Asia, and one for Latin America. And the decisions for the different stages will be communicated shortly after the ratification of the decision by our bureau. For the teams, we have something new this year. It means that we are going through 2 stages. So first of all, there's the concept note, and that focuses on a narrative description of the context, sustainable development challenges, and the theory of change. So actually it should show the flow between impact, outcome, and intermediate changes. And also the methodological and scientific approach will be important in here. So it can put focus on research, pedagogical methods, also the type of community-based approaches, the vision on uptake, valorization, etc. So that's for the concept note, which happens in stage 1. If the concept note is selected, then it will go further to stage 2. And stage 2 is the fully fledged proposal. The fully fledged proposal, it means that you will go much further into detail with a fully elaborated theory of change, intermediate changes and activities, detailed indicators, and also a risk and stakeholder analysis and a budgeting. And risk and stakeholder analysis and budgeting, those are things that don't need to be done during the concept note, but it will be asked for the second stage. So the ones that will be selected during stage 1. Then the peer review team, we also organize a peer review for the team proposals. So a peer review system applies on the teams that are selected for stage 2. It's an independent peer review that focuses on the scientific and methodological quality and is applied on the selected concept note proposals. So the ones that are selected go to stage 2 and they will get the feedback of the peer reviews. So the written peer review assessments will be made available to the applicants during the elaboration stage of the fully fledged proposals. That will be early May. For applicants to take into account the peer review assessments when they are finalizing their proposals, so that they can get all the feedback to have a good proposal to submit in the second stage. When this will happen? So the timing, well, for the short initiatives, it's quite easy. The deadline for submission is the 18th of March, 2022, with a selection early May and a start from the 1st of September, 2022. For the teams, a bit more complicated because we have these 2 stages. The call for, so the submission for the concept notes is due on the 18th of February with a selection around mid-March. And then the call for the fully fledged proposals, which is stage 2. So that applies for the ones that have been selected in stage 1. That's around the 25th of March. The peer reviews to the applicants will be sent early May. And then the submission will be awaited at the 2nd of June, so that applicants will have time to process the feedback of the peer reviews, with the selection end of June or early July. So which means that they also will be able to start as from the 1st of September, like the short initiatives. Next presentation will be about the new formats and guidelines, and that's again Peter that will give this. So, well, yes, we have a new formats and guidelines. You've already seen that we put much focus on the theory of change now, and there are also the scholarship and financial guidelines that have been updated, but Peter will give you some more explanation on it in the next PowerPoint. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Actually, we arrived first before next presentations at a moment to have some questions and answers. can see that quite a lot of questions were placed in the chat already. We tried to respond to some of them, but that is not always easy. Anyways, I would like to ask people that have an urgent general question that they would raise their hand, so we can have a number of questions now. And I ask my colleagues to help out to see who is first in raising the hand.
I see Kennedy who raised the hand first, I think. If you would like to unmute yourself to ask your question.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kennedy Otwombe. I am an associate professor at Wits School of Public Health, and I work in the perinatal HIV research unit in the Chris Hani Bara Hospital in Soweto. I'm quite interested in the team's application, but I wondered whether, if I don't have any immediate collaborator in Belgium, do you have a mechanism in which you can introduce applicants to potential collaborators in Belgium who they can jointly work together in putting a proposal? Thank you.
This is a mechanism in general that we do not have yet, but we included in the call also some contact persons per university associations. So you can contact through that persons and look for interested potential partners at the level of the Flemish universities and universities of applied sciences and arts. But we don't have a platform, but that is an ambition that we have in the future to make that possible, but unfortunately today, no. So try to inform yourself, try to pick up contacts, look in the field that you're interested in, and there are a number of contact persons also at level of university associations and at level of Vliegewest that can be contacted for the moment.
Thank you.
I think, Peter, I also saw several questions in the chat which are a little bit related to this.
Okay.
Several people asking which partners do we need to form a project? Can we include partners from Europe? Can we include only partners from other European countries and no Belgian partners? What about only local teams with no European partners? So maybe you could give some information about this.
Well, the basic partner constellation is that there is a higher education institute at the Flemish side at the promoter level and in one of the or more of the partner countries that are on the list. So there is a partner promoter that is also a higher education or science institution recognized in those partner countries. For instance, other European universities, members of those universities, they don't enter that contractual framework. Members of those universities could be included in the broader project team, same as other actors are not in the contractual team, but they can. We of course very much welcome multi-stakeholder partnerships. So we welcome in the depends of the promoters which are linked to higher education and science institutions. But depending on them, of course, we hope that they go for multi-actor settings in the project team at level of the stakeholders and so forth.
And I also saw, related to this, Johanna van der Straat, who asked in the chat, can 2 Flemish universities jointly submit the proposal together with a non-Flemish partner from your country list, of course?
Yes, at the Flemish level, there is a possibility to include a co-promotership, and that was also what was referring to in the team project. This possibility to get a top-up of 20,000 is actually linked to a multi higher education HAZY setup on the Flemish and or partner country level.
Yeah, I think then Sihan also raised their hand, or second, I think.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the information. First of all, my question is about who can apply for the project. So currently we are running a multi-stakeholder project for young researchers. So we already have a project and partners. And as far as I know, Valerius wants to see these projects evolve into a Teams project. On the other hand, I wonder how, as a young researcher, I can stay in the project framework. Then the question is are the postdoc researchers eligible for this call for submission from Q11? So that would be my question.
I think Kathleen showed in our presentation a slide with the criteria to be a Flemish or partner promoter. That was on slide number 4, where that is what is the formal regulation. So a person needs to have a contract relation, actually, needs to be a professor, lecturer, or specialist at a Flemish university or university college to be a Flemish promoter, and to be a promoter at level of a partner institute. It needs to be at level of a recognized higher education or national public research center, and you need to be employed there. So there needs to be a similar formal status of employment. It's not a student status.
Okay, so it needs to be a permanent position rather than a postdoc. I also don't see postdoc research as a student status. It's an employment.
It's an employment status that is required. That can, depending on the institutes, that can take different forms. But in principle, it's an employment status. So professor, lecturer, specialist.
Okay, it's still not clear for my case, but maybe I will send an email regarding my employment status to receive a clear answer to the
Anyways, at the moment of coming up with proposals, the idea is also that, well, proposals are prepared at level of a local and a partner and a Flemish promoter, is that it can be checked also with the ECOS of the Flemish University Association, so that they can also confirm whether the status complies with what is required.
All right, thank you very much.
I think the next one is Diomede. Diomede, please. Diomede Mujojoma.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Diomede Mujojoma from Burundi, working on an organization called COPED, Conseil pour l'éducation et le développement. So my question is this, for the short initiatives or for the teams, must all be for education or oriented, or there are other domains that your organization work in? And also, if for education, must we be in partnership with a Flemish university, or we can partner with another institution, education institution? Thank you.
I can answer this. Yes, the partnership is very important with the Flemish universities. So you need to be in a partnership. That's one. And there was also your question about your first question. Yes, so focus can be put either on research or on education, also on strengthening structures. So it can also strengthen the university governance. So there can be different approaches, okay? But a project should always have an uptake component, so that it can be useful for its environment, either for the society or some links to the society. So uptake should be included in every project. But it's up to you whether you put a focus on research or education or on university governance.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Rugazia from Tanzania. I wanted to ask whether the project can cover medical collaborations, particularly the only medical education or clinical components of the education part that can influence the community at large. Over.
Yes, I think I already saw your question in the chat, right?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Yes, that was you. Yes, that's a possibility. Yes.
Okay. Well, I look forward to getting directions on how to approach that, because I didn't see anything to do with clinical part, only the healthcare part of the information. Thank you so much.
I saw a few other questions in the chat as well about flexibility regarding partner countries. Somebody asked, Sudan is not on the list. Can we still apply to join in and propose? Someone else said, are you flexible expanding your partnerships? Can we include a new partner from a new country like Afghanistan, for example?
The partner country list is limited to the 17 countries that are listed in the call. So the cooperation targets those countries. Individuals from other countries could at one stage have a role, like for instance that in the team that there are some collaborations with other projects, but the target is really on the 17 partner countries, whereas it goes for the structural cooperation.
I also see a question here. Do we have to write all pre-proposals in English? Yes. So all pre-proposals and proposals, just proposals, need to be in English. Yeah, no French anymore.
And I think then the next one who raised their hand was Thomas. Thomas Min?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, I'm Thomas from Arbam University, Ethiopia. My question is, if I submit a natural science related proposal, usually reviewers are from social sciences, so they fail to understand the proposal. So how are you taking care about the specialization of selecting the peer reviewers according to the proposal submitted?
Well, actually, the selection commissions are composed taking into account broad profiles and taking into account also coverage of different scientific disciplines. Now, projects are also very much applied, dealing with working towards sustainable development. So you can also see in the formats that it doesn't go very deep into the specialization, that's one thing. But also for the team projects, like we indicated, there is a peer review, and that peer review will, of course, be linked to the specialization domain. For the SI projects, that is not the case. But we have a broad selection commission with a broad coverage and expertise. And it's not so that they are all of the social sciences. That is not correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And maybe the next in line is, I think it's Boris. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hi, this is Boris Rees, faculty at KO Leuven, so I will be a promoter. I have a question to the criteria. So you have relevance, coherence, and so on. Will you publish your evaluation of this criteria before, i.e. will you publish a rubric so that we know upfront how this will be evaluated?
There is, like in the call, we indicate the 4 criteria and we explain what the criteria are about. There is also a link to a more detailed selection system document, which was actually part of the call, where you can find the more detailed descriptors that actually are used at level of the different criteria. And you will also see that these descriptors match match and are linked with a number of the questions that are in the format. We actually refer to that in the more detailed formulation guidelines. This is the information that is provided. Okay. You can also find in the selection system document some more information on the scoring system. But that is what it is. There will not be more information than what is provided there.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
I see here a question from Bruno Boncher. Is there some possibility of collaborations with French-speaking universities in Brussels or in Belgium, I suppose, through joint projects with others? Actually, I could say that collaboration is possible, not as a promoter, but perhaps as a team member or a co-promoter. So there are some possibilities to join in either a short initiative or a team. So it happens with the I should say the main promoters.
Okay, still Evelyn is next persons that still have questions. We can have still a few questions and then we will move to.
I think there's George who raised his hand.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm George from Tanzania. I was asking, is there a possibility of one team to apply for two teams project at once, provided that you have no project running after 1st of September 2022?
I think that was also clarified in the call that a promoter, both on the Flemish or partner side, can have maximum 2 ongoing projects. Now, as most projects at the level of LRS are finishing actually this 5-year program, only those persons that are a promoter of a team project 2019 are already have one project on the list. So theoretically, you can be a promoter of 2, you can present 2 proposals if you don't have any ongoing projects. And the same rule goes for the Flemish and the partner side.
I see still a few questions in the chat as well. Should the project be applied at the institution level only, or can individuals in group affiliated in the institution apply for it? I don't know if the question is clear, or we can
Not
maybe
very,
ask.
Yeah, well, actually,
Gisela, maybe you can clarify if you would like, or.
But I think it's clarified in the system. I mean, we need a Flemish promoter and a partner promoter, and that those persons, to be able to be promoter, you need to be linked in the Flemish side to a university or university college. And on the partner side, you need to be linked to a higher education, a recognized higher education or science institution. That is the constellation.
Okay. I think there's still Luffy Kartika Sari who would like to ask a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I have 3 questions. First, it's talking about postdoc researchers' position. I'm in the last stage of PhD from Indonesia. So I know that only promoter can apply, but postdoc researchers can be included in a team project, I mean in the project team?
Yes, so you need to include it in the team for sure.
Yeah.
But like we said, you need your home institution in Indonesia, well, a person that has an employment status with your home institution needs to be the promoter.
Like, for example, in my case, I have a professor from Indonesian university, and then I have a promoter also at the FUB now. So my FUB promoter will apply, and then they can cooperate with my Indonesian professors and then I can be included in the project team. Is that correct?
Theoretically, that is possible. Yeah, I don't know the specific situations, but yes, theoretically that is possible.
I mean, that's the for example. Example. Yeah. Okay, and then the second one, a few days ago, I tried to open the format of concept notes of the project team. It requires to register.
For the moment, you don't. We want to register everybody that is interested, but even if you click no, you will access the format.
Okay, so I thought that maybe only the promoter who can register.
No, you can also you can just click no, and you will see that there is a direct link to the formats. And if you have a problem, you can let us know.
And also in the document about stage 1 concept notes, I saw a list of background documents. When I open it, they say that FLIR do not share the link with your email. So can I register also?
That is strange, but please address us via a separate email, and then we can check what the specific problem is.
Okay. And then the last question is there any maximum numbers of higher education from partner countries?
No.
No.
Well, no. Of course, I think you have to be realistic in certain contexts, but in your partner team, we welcome multiple actor and multiple higher education institutes. But of course, you have to see what is realistical and feasible, of course, within your project context. That is difficult to answer.
Okay. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I think we need to keep the timing. We will need to stop this Q&A session. I don't think the most questions that came back were similar. I look into my colleagues whether there is still another pressing question that is differentiated from the previous ones that we should address now, or can we move to the short break?
I see still the last question. Are you specifically looking for projects in health and environment? Or are you also interested in, for example, entrepreneurship related projects? And my colleague Kathleen already answered.
Okay.
We are not looking for specific topics. Entrepreneurship is possible as well. Of course, we mention topics of gender and environment because we would like all projects to integrate them into their project proposal. But this does not mean that the content of the project needs to be about gender or environment.
Yeah. There's also this other question. To submit 2 proposals for both applications, should the 2 proposals totally different, or both proposals could be in similar field or topic? I would say it's up to you. There's no restriction about it. So actually, it's up to the commission, the selection commission, to decide. But no restrictions.
Okay, I will have one last question because I see the name of Kati Terasa, so I would like to have that last question, and then we will go into a 5-minute break. If the person can speak up, because otherwise we will have to go directly to the break.
Yes, good morning. Can you listen to me?
Yes.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you for this presentation. Please, could you give some words or some explanation about terms of condition that is in the papers that we have to submit? There is an issue about condition or terms of condition, if I may remember well.
I don't really know what you're specifically referring to, but we will go about the formats in the next presentation. But terms and conditions, I don't know in relation to what, but you can always address a separate question to us via email if you want, so that we can try to clarify, because now I cannot
Yeah,
see.
okay, thank you very much. I will try later on, so then thank you.
Okay, so then we will start with the presentation on the formats and the guidelines. Yeah, like this slide has been shown already twice, but now it's for real. We're moving into the presentation, and yeah, I already talked about the modular approach that we have now for the formats. The idea actually is why change format, why, I mean, we like I said, we wanted to standardize, we want also to simplify a number of elements, have less text, less documents, less annexes. The ambition is that we would move also towards a submission tool that would be in an online environment. We're not fully there yet. It's quite a challenge also, but we will be improving, and we hope also by January to be able to have an environment where I think we can add the proposals. But for the moment, you will be working with a number of working documents, which are the Word and the Excel format that you can download via the link. The idea is also to avoid duplication, and also, as you will see, not all modules are applicable for all projects or for all programs. For instance, for the SI and the team concept notes, we actually reduced some of the requirements as compared, for instance, to a team fully fledged proposal or an IUC or an ICP. So this introductory PowerPoint is sort of the rough guide to, but the more detailed information you will actually find in the formulation guidelines document, which also provides background information on which elements are relevant for which parts in the formats, and which provides also tools and checklists for the integration of the SDG principles for other topics and so forth. The formats, like I said, part of the info will be in the Word, part in the Excel, but I will come back to that. We also placed still a number of support videos on the website, depending whether the registration of today is good. We might also still use this and make it, in any ways, the idea is to make also this session available online. So the 8 modules are the following. So all VLIROS projects would basically follow that structure. Like I said, not always application up to the same levels. We will go through via the different modules. Also here, I added this slide. I think it was not in the document that we attached to the call, but where we tried to also indicate the difference in terms of what is required for an SI and a team project, basically at level of the required text in the narrative format. We try to differentiate this here. So this is something you can look back at, depending on whether you go for one or the other. The first module is dealing with context analysis and has actually 2 main parts. Like we talked a lot about the sustainable development, the Agenda 2030. So the one part is actually referring to the sustainable development context, and the other part is more related to your partner institutional context. So at the level of the sustainable development context, there are also a number of key questions that can guide you. Why is your project needed? What are the key sustainable development challenges and problems that you want to tackle? Which is the problem for? Causes of the problem? How are these development challenges, issues linked to one another? We ask you to reflect on that, and actually the idea is to write in the Word format maximum half a page on this section. Of course, very much in the second question dealing with the partner context analysis, is of course very much linked to the first one. I mean, it's of course interconnected, but here you can reflect on what are the key strengths and weaknesses of the involved departments, unit, teams that are in the proposal at level of the partner institution or institutions. What key areas need further development? What is the added value of the project for the institution, for the local department or team? And also, of course, yeah, the link up with eventual previous experiences. Also for this part, it's half a page that is expected in the Word format. That is module 1, but important also is, like we mentioned it already, yeah, the SDG principles, take that into your reflection. We also included a checklist here in the presentation, but you will find some more tools in the full formulation guidelines. And this can help you also in, yeah, how do I take that on board when we do the context analysis, or even in the other modules as well. This checklist is not to be limited to module 1 only. The second module would be, yeah, the biggest one, I would say. It's the module that deals with the impact statement, the theory of change, and specific and project strategies. It's really about this envisioning of this desired long-term change, this dream to which the projects want to contribute, and describing, visualizing the change pathways. That will be crucial to make a good case or a good proposal. And it has different components. And the first component is the impact statement. This is actually here we require a statement of maximum 500 characters to be that will clarify, thinking about the context analysis, the sustainable development and partner context analysis, on what is the ambition, the dream of the project, and how do you go about it, or how does your project contribute to it? This is a statement. Then it's interesting to also, when you look into this, when you start this reflection process on the impact statement and the theory of change, to go back to the Vliet generic theory of change for SI and team projects, because it can be inspiring, because there you see also, if we talk about the different levels, you can see, you can make that link. So I think it's a good idea when you do so to have that beside you. Because the section on the theory of change, we provide a number of key questions here. I mean, the key questions are, what are the key areas where change is needed to realize this dream? What areas of change can a Vliet supported project realistically influence? These are then to be translated in a sort of an outcome statement of your project, whereby you can align with the standard Vliet outcomes. Remembering, for instance, the link between educational aspects, more inclusive education and uptake, for instance. That could be a link there. The next part would be then to go deeper and design the strategy by selecting one or more of the 6 domains of intermediate change, those standard intermediate change domains that we referred to in the theory of change. And for each domain, you're not obliged, not expected to choose all these domains. You select a few, depending on where your project will really want to achieve results, intermediate changes. For each of those domains, you're expected to formulate an intermediate change statement. I will come back to it. And also important is that your activities will be organized within the selected domains. So you're expected to develop your activities linked to the domain. So of course, thinking about the activities, maybe that will be a process where you might say, okay, actually we should include this domain also. There is no limitation. You can, in terms of the intermediate change domains, it's open. We don't impose any kind of limitations there. And also your indicators will be linked to that. In this process, it's important also, when you reflect on this theory of change, what are the assumptions, the uncertainties, the risks that may influence the change process? So these are a number of key questions that guide you in this theory of change. Now, how does it fit in the formats? First of all, the narrative explanation, the logical flow between those different levels, the dream, the outcome level, the intermediate change level. This narrative is to be explained in a text of about 1.5 pages in the narrative document for the moment. That is, like I say, it needs to be a fluid text. It's not about listing activities at all. It's really about a clear description of the change process. Then also a difference for the SI projects. Next to the narrative, you're expected to input in the Excel basically the steps 3 to 6. In the Excel, you will actually outline your put the statement of the outcome statement, the statements per domain, and you will put the activities. These are not listed, the activities are not listed in the narrative description. So for the SI project, you have a part in the narrative and a part in the Excel. On the other hand, for the team concept notes, this is different. The team concept notes, at this point, we only ask for the narrative conceptual explanation in the Word, and there is no detailing of the domains of the activities at this point. This will only be relevant for the selected concept notes that move to the second stage. So in the fully fledged proposal, this will be required, but not at this point. So the team concept notes, they only are required to include this 1.5 page of narrative description, focusing on this a good explanation of the flow between the different steps and levels. Next to that part, also important in this module are the more detailed strategies of the project. Very important there for sure is also question number 1. That is on the methodological approach, where of course this can, depending on the focus of your project, these can be scientific methodologies or educational training methodologies, can be on multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary approaches. Important there is when you do this methodological description that you also try to integrate aspects related to how you will guarantee the uptake, what will be your strategy for uptake, dissemination, how you integrate the transversal themes that gender and environment. This is to be taken on board in this section. And then, yeah, this you have about 2 pages maximum that can be written about this. So it can be less as well, but it's a maximum. I see that number 2 is addressed as number 1 there on the slide as well. Sorry for that. But so the second key question is the challenges for the sustainability of the project. Okay, an SI project, 2 years, and a team concept note. At this stage, we don't ask you to go very deep, but it's about 1/2 page that you write out on how you envisage that's challenges for the sustainability of the project. Yeah, here a short word. So there's the word. The Excel is also with some handy. There has a navigation panel with some handy click-throughs through the different parts that are to be included. And this gives you an overview of, like, for instance, and this part here is to be filled out for the SI projects. But like I said, the team projects will not go into the domains yet. But here in the Excel, you will only be able to list activities per intermediate change domain. If you click on the right, where is no now, if you click yes, and then you will see that you can also outline your activities there. Per domain that you select, you will need to write out a statement, an intermediate change statement, and here you can get some inspiration. Also in the formulation guidelines, there is some inspiration on all of this that can be taken into account. So that is a large module. It also took most of my time in terms of the explanation. In terms of the organization, that's the next module, module 3. What we expect here is that there are a number of key questions. It's actually quite limited, but it's the presentation of who is involved and what are the roles and responsibilities. In the Excel, there are a number of click menus. You can indicate whether the person in your team is a professor or a PhD or a postdoc. Those are possibilities there. And then a reflection on how your project is structured. What is the the distribution of the tasks and how is that organized in a balanced way between the partner and Flemish team. This is to be written concise in maximum half a page in the Word. The stakeholder analysis is module 4, stakeholders and coherence, in fact. And there we simplified it at this level, at this point, for the short initiatives and the team concept notes. So basically, for the team concept note, because there will be a next stage afterwards if it's selected. Here it's just a key question that needs to be addressed with description and analysis. And that is about maximum half a page with regard to the stakeholder approaches. For the SI project, it's we already asked a little bit more, but we asked the identification and what is the interest, influence, and how will the stakeholders be involved in the project, but still quite basic also as to what is expected here. The questions on the coherence, and this links up also with the synergy and complementarity, are the same for the team and SI projects, but this is to be outlined in a narrative. Yeah, it's about potential synergies, complementarities internally within VLIRUS projects, between VLIRUS projects, with other projects, with other Belgian organizations, and so forth. But my colleague Eveline will still say a word about synergy and complementarity. Module 5 is planning and budgeting. Basically, yeah, like I said, it's 2 components. But also here, it is not that extent. Well, actually, for the team concept notes, we only ask a short narrative reflection on whether you go for the 300,000 or the 280,000 budget, but there is no detailed budget for the team concept notes. However, for the SI projects, a budget format was included along these standard budget lines and sub budget lines. I think added to the call, there was also a background document on the financial guidelines that you can consult. And I think it's quite clear and it helps you out where you place certain costing when you make up your budget. Basically, we want also to give the message that we fund cooperation. Share of investment costs is to be rather limited. I mean, of course, depending on the context. Also, share of personnel cost. I mean, it's about making possible that these project activities can occur in the best possible way, and that improve the basic conditions in which academics can do their job and can work towards challenges that deal with sustainable development. The scholarship allowances, we don't have the time to go into detail, but these have been reformed. We also included some in the budget format, some easy calculation rates. There are 3 types: short-term, study, and research that I identified. And yeah, you can see that well, whereas in the past, for instance, the subdivision was differentiated, and now you see that under research falls pre-doc, PhD, and postdoc. The study can be bachelor, master, graduate, postgraduate. Short terms are education, trainings, or research stays up until 6 months for which no degree is awarded. Now, the basic idea is that scholarships in a project, they are what we say embedded scholarships, that they contribute to the capacity level, capacity building process in general, and at level of course, to the benefit of the project objectives. The calculation rates that are included are based on an all-in formula, but I will not go into detail further now. Yeah, the maximum budget you already know. I already set the element, explained the element of the team at 280 or 20,000 euro top up if there is a proven multi interinstitutional setting at the partner or Flemish side. Then a general recommendation is also, when you make up your budget, already reflect a little bit on the distribution of the budget, because quite often we see that projects tend to over budget in the beginning, where they for instance, often are still dealing with preparation in the first months, and then we see that there is a lot of under expenditure in the first year. Of course, this doesn't go for all contexts, but this is something to take into account. Next module, yeah, the risks. Actually, I can be short. This is a detailed module in some of the other intervention types. Here, we will try to include this rather at level when the projects are selected. We will come back to this. But at this point, we didn't include this module for the SI and team concept notes because we, like I explained, we wanted to keep it low access. In terms of monitoring reporting, partly the same story in the sense that we also want to develop on that further once projects are going towards eventual implementation. Yeah, for the team concept notes, this module is not yet included. That will be in the next stage. For the SI projects, we ask you to fill out at least the standard indicators for the domains that you choose, because like I said, indicators are linked to the chosen intermediate change domains. So we ask you for those domains that you choose to provide us for the standard indicators with a baseline and a target value. The other optional indicators or project-specific indicators, it's not mandatory at this stage. We will ask this once project started, but if you have in an SI proposal, you can add them. It's not limited. So this is an overview, but I will not go into the explanation of these standard indicators now. The last module is learning and steering. Also here, the word says it. This is not a module only at level of writing an application. The idea is that in a future online tool, we would be able to address certain elements during implementation, monitoring of the proposals, and develop further this learning and steering. At this point, for the proposal, it's actually quite limited. We would like, there is one question or divided into sub components where you are asked to reflect on your previous experiences or projects that occurred between the partners or that are related. How does this project build upon lessons learned of previous experiences? And in the case of follow-up projects, of course, or new submissions, what is the added value of this project? Or if you do a resubmission from a project you submitted but was not selected a number of years ago, for instance, a team project, yeah, then what have you learned from that? What have you changed? Okay, this is, I know quite I try to do is at quickly as possible, but this was in fact the presentation. So the idea is that we can check whether there are a number of questions at this point or not. So my colleagues, can you help me out?
Kathleen, you're still muted.
Sorry about this, new technology. Yes, there's a question in the chat. Can also University of Applied Sciences benefit of the extra 20,000 euro if they work with another University of Applied Sciences or two partners of higher education? I suppose yes, but Peter, perhaps.
Yes, of course. Yeah. This the same. Okay. All the same rules apply for university and universities of applied sciences and arts. There are no differentiations. Yeah.
Another question in the chat: what is the success percentage between applications and funded projects for SE and for teams?
Yeah, well, okay, that's a good question, but it's not an easy one to answer because, of course, we don't have a clue at this point how many proposals we will get. The only thing is that I can say is that in terms of the team projects, we are aiming You saw the numbers of projects that can be selected. That is included in the call. I think if I recall it correctly, it's 29 projects, SI projects that are selectable in the end, and 39 team projects. In the case of the team, it's a 2-round stage procedure. The idea is that in the second round, you would have basically about a 50% chance minimum, so that there would be a 1 out of 2. In the first round, I cannot say it, it will depend on the number of proposals. But basically, if there is about the double of proposals, it may be to be expected, then it could be also a 1 to 2 chance to move to the second round. In the case of the SIs, okay, I really don't know how many proposals we can expect, but you can make a calculation. If there would be 120 SI proposals, okay, yeah, then you can calculate towards the 29 what that would mean. So that is the answer I can give at this point. I think in general our success rates are quite okay if you compare it with other funding mechanisms. But
I saw that even Van Mechelen also wrote in the chat they would like to ask a question on the partner institute context.
Thank you. Yes, I was a little bit confused with regard to the description of partner institute context in context analysis, because everything was formulated in single partner institute, whereas if the partner institute represent a bunch of other institutes, how should I then translate that into such a context?
No, I did. It's indeed. I think we should correct it maybe in the next version that it is clear that it can of course be a multiple. Very often you see that the basic partners in a number of these SI and team projects are sometimes more limited constellations, but we very much hope that there will be multi-institutional components, and we should probably clarify that in this presentation that it's institution and with an S between brackets. Okay. Or it's about multiple teams, units, departments, institutions, because also we know that very often an SI or a team project doesn't work necessarily with the whole institution. It works with teams in different institutions.
Okay, thanks.
Related to the previous question, there's Boris Reis who is asking how many proposals did you get in the past?
I just replied actually.
Okay, I didn't see it yet.
More than 100 proposals per project type.
Yeah, but maybe there I would like to add something. It's correct what is said, but the difference with the previous rounds will be that in the calls in the previous 5-year program, the project types SE, team, and joints, they were selected in regional commissions together without guaranteed boundaries per intervention. So it was the selection was mixed over intervention types. This will be different. The SI selection will occur separate from the team project selection. So in that sense, that also makes a difference. But in both cases, we will have first, in timing actually, we will have first a selection round of the team concept notes that will be via the 3 regional commissions. Later on, after the submission date of the SI projects, we will have the selection of the SI projects via the 3 regional, and then of course, those projects that went to team stage 2, the selection will be, if I'm correct, end of June, early July in the end, also via the 3 regional commissions. Yes, next question, Bert Ingelare.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you also for the explanation. I have a number of questions, I think, related to what you've just explained. First, especially if you explain the context and the theory of change, do you expect, or for instance, also for a team project, a concept note that you make use of references like academic references? And do they need to be included in, let's say, the number of words or the pages that you have? That's my first question. And then regarding the important themes, so gender and environment, I saw already in the documents also like regarding the composition of the team, it's quite detailed, let's say the number of requirements, also in the composition of the team, like 40, 60. Is this really, do you need to tick all these requirements or part of them, or is this a suggestion? So how, how do you need to apply them? And then regarding the theme of environment, imagine if the topic of your project is, well, has no real, let's say, content that has to deal with environment. How would you need to incorporate that? Is that then more regarding the project activities, or how do we need to see that? Thank you.
Okay, I think first on the academic references, yeah, there is no separate section to add academic references. So this is not, but in your text you can make some references, but indeed it's part of the proposal. So there is no, we don't request any detailed lists of reference document at this point. We still have to see whether in the fully fledged proposal, maybe there will be some elements added, but at this point, certainly not. Then for the gender environment, of course, I think my colleague will also address it still in the next presentation and give you some info on how to go about it. Quite a lot of elements there with regard to the teams are not formal requirements, but there are guidelines. There are a lot of tips to be given and things that would be good practices. That's still something different than that we would go about and checking the team or something. That is not at this point the idea. But my colleague will go further into the gender and environment in the last presentation. Also, when it goes about how to go about a project dealing with environment, if it's not a key topic in the project, we of course understand that then it's not the idea to invent things, but there are some tips that Evelyn can give. Yes, Mr. Boris Reis.
I thought I have to wait for a moment because usually it takes a while. So I hope this is not too theoretical and too special to just shut me off if that's too detailed. So I'm new to this funding mechanism, and I understand that on a Teams application, if that's a research project, there would be typically a PhD student involved in the partner organization, and then with maximum half time being on the Belgium university. I understand that we also have to, part of the proposal is that we build capacities. Would it be possible or feasible to build capacity to create a person to become a PhD student? So if the people we are talking about Ecuador, and we're specifically talking about analytical skills and laboratory skills, and they're lacking a certain specific skill set there, which is typical on the PhD level, but so we have to bring the people to the PhD level. But we also want to do the research. So now we are lacking the people in Ecuador to actually can do the research. So I'm wondering, would it be feasible to bring somebody into a PhD program?
Yes, for sure. It's not that we expect every team project to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 PhDs. That's not the case. It's perfectly possible to have a team project which does not have any PhD training, but and that tackles other. It has another focus. I mean, it's not necessarily about research. It can be another, like we explained, another direction. But if it's a project which goes more towards research, yeah, it can be it depends on really the needs and what are your project objectives and how do you want to strengthen your team, and that can involve other kinds of trainings within our scholarship allowances, with our scholarship guidelines. You can see that there are different categories. So it does not have to be at the PhD level yet. It can prepare people for that level. Yeah.
Okay, good, perfect. Thank you.
I saw in the chat a question from George. Can you repeat the maximum amount paid as topping up in the team project?
Yeah, actually, I replied.
I didn't see it. My apologies.
No, it's okay. So if different institutions are involved in the design of a team and also for the implementation afterwards, they can get a top up of 20,000 euros maximum, if you really can show that there are different institutions involved. Mm-hmm. So that's a top up that can be given.
Yeah, well, it means that your project budget you can apply for a 300,000 maximum instead of a 280,000. I'm just want to make sure that we don't confound with topping up of personnel related costs, because that's something completely different. So it's really about an add-on on the normal project budget of 280,000.
I also see a question here from Gisela. How difficult to answer. How many individuals are expected to benefit from each project? It really depends on the design of your project. Difficult to give a number.
Yeah, we cannot put a number on that. That is indeed, like Kathleen said, depends on the target area, the focus, and a lot of elements there. And we will not check numbers there. I mean, it's all about the logical explanation of your project proposal and the fitting between the different levels. And so no numbers. Any other questions still?
I see a question from Chris in the chat. Some newly interested colleagues might not make it to this deadline, and so they're wondering, will a similar call be repeated in the next year or in the next years, or is this the call for the upcoming 5 years?
No, yeah. This is not the last call for the 5 years. There will be calls also as the next years. This is only the call for projects that start in 2022, but there will again be a call for projects starting in 2023, 24, 25. However, the team call is not each year, but there are, I think, if I'm correct, 3 or 4 team calls planned, but I forgot it now. I don't know by heart. So if you're not ready for a proposal this year, there will be a call next year.
So I think we answered all the questions, unless my colleagues still see some other ones, or unless somebody wants to raise their hand.
Okay, well, I would also like to say that we can still have some questions at the end. So maybe it's a good idea, Evelyn, that you start your presentation, and then if there are any remaining questions, we can have them at the end of the session altogether.
Yes. Okay. So I'll start to share my presentation. Can you confirm me that it's shared correctly?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then I will start. So yeah, my name is Evelyn, and we'll do a very short presentation about several topics which are important for Vlieger West. Such as the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, as well as synergy and complementarity, as well as transversal themes, which were already mentioned before, gender and environment. So I'll mostly focus now on some practical tips and links to resources which can help you to integrate these topics into your project. So the first one is 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As I was already mentioned earlier, we will move away from the country strategies, and the Sustainable Development Goals will be at the center of everything we do as an organization, which means we also expect the new project proposals to take this into account. The most important resource that I can recommend for you on this topic are the country reference frameworks. So these are documents, 17 documents that we created for each of our partner countries, and they contain context analysis on Agenda 2030 in the country. So this is very useful, and I would also recommend you to take a look at this. It also contains lots of links to other websites where you can find more information about this topic. And you can find these in two ways, these documents. Either you go to the VLIROS website, you click on countries, then you select the partner country that you're interested in. And then at the bottom of the page, you can download the country reference framework for this country. Or another way to find the documents is through these two call documents, which are mentioned here on the slide. And there you can find a list of direct links for each country. And then, of course, the Agenda 2030, we would like to integrate it into our projects through the SDG principles, which were already mentioned earlier in presentations. So the three principles are leaving no one behind, multi-stakeholder partnerships, and interconnectedness. So as was already mentioned earlier, they're quite important, which is why they're all linked through the 4 selection criteria as well. So I would recommend you, for more information about this, to check the formulation guidelines. So the link is in the slides as well. So there's a general information part in the formulation guidelines at the beginning. And then, as mentioned earlier, as Peter showed, there's a checklist for each module on how to integrate the SDG principles. Then next, of course, there's synergy and complementarity. So this is, of course, not new, but because we focus more and more on connecting in the VLIROS network, but also outside the VLIROS network, this is becoming increasingly important to take into account into your project proposals. So, of course, there's the GSFs, the thematic and the geographic GSFs, as was already mentioned earlier in a previous presentation. And we can recommend you 2 resources, which we want to use to facilitate the connections between, for example, the actors in the GSFs and you who are developing the project proposals. The first one are the country reference frameworks again. So besides the context analysis on Agenda 2030, they also contain an overview of other Belgian actors active in the specific country. So you can, for example, find information about their partners in the country, in which region they're working in, and other information. So I would all recommend you to take a look here at this overview, at this list of actors, and maybe you find some interesting opportunities for collaboration or for synergy and complementarity. And then secondly, there's the research questions and topics. So we have to say that this is still in development, but we can already announce it that it's coming soon. So soon we will contact some other actors in the field of sustainable development, some NGOs, etc. We will ask them whether they have any research questions or topics that are of interest to them and that they would think is interesting to research in a VLIROS project. And then we will collect all this input on our VLIROS website. And then the idea is that you who are developing the project proposals can take a look and maybe get some inspiration or some ideas for collaboration with some organizations. Then, of course, there are the transversal themes, as already mentioned earlier. There's gender and environment. And we kind of would like you to integrate these two themes transversally into your project proposals. So for gender, we have the 3 fixes model that VLIROS works with, which means we work on fixing the numbers, fixing the organization, and fixing the content. So first of all, I would like to recommend you the formulation guidelines. They contain some general information about the topic, as well as some guiding questions, which you can use to ask yourself, to reflect on the topic, is the gender perspective taken into account in my project, and how can I still improve it? And it also contains a list of tools and resources, additional websites, etc. And then secondly, of course, there's the VLOS gender policy as well. If you would like, for example, some explanation about this 3 fixes model, what is this model? How does VLOS use it? Maybe it gives some inspiration for your project. You can find all of this in the gender policy. And then secondly, there's, of course, the topic of environment, which can be integrated in the management of your project as well as the content. So I heard that there was a question earlier about this, like what if my project is not focusing on environment or on gender? So this is kind of the answer to that. Like you can either choose to integrate it in the content of your project, but that's not necessary. You can also choose to integrate it in the project management. For example, try to improve the balance between the number of women and men in your project, or related to environment, take a look at, for example, your mobilities, your travel, short distance travel. Can we do this by public transportation instead of taking flights or things like this? So in this way, I think there's a reflection process possible for each project, that you can think about gender and environment in your project, not necessarily only as the content of your project, but also in other ways. And so both of these topics, gender and environment, are mainstream throughout the selection criteria as well. For environment, I can recommend the same important resource as for gender, the formulation guidelines. There's some general information, some guiding questions, and links to additional tools and resources as well. And then secondly, I would like to also invite you to take a look at the 2 toolkits that are mentioned here. First one developed by Klimos, and the second by Louvain Coopération. We think it could be useful to help you if you would like to do maybe a more in-depth exercise related to environment. If you would like to do a deep reflection process, this could be helpful. And then finally, I would like to briefly mention these other priority themes: digital for development, decolonization, global citizenship, decent work, and human rights. So these are priority themes for VLOS, which means they are important, but we are still working on it ourselves. In the next years, we will continue to work on working out what do these themes mean for VLOS, how can we integrate them in our work. And so this will be further elaborated, but of course we can only encourage you to reflect on what they mean for your project yourselves. And for D4D, Digital for Development, I can also share with you the link to this flashcard, which contains some basic information about the topic and some questions you can ask yourself to see how this is related to your project. So this was my brief presentation with an overview mostly of links, which will be useful when you elaborate your project. Are there any questions? Or did my colleagues see some questions in the chat?
Actually, there was a question of, yes, as NGO, what do we have to do to be contacted to make suggestions of potential research questions relevant for the communities we are working with? Yeah, well, it will be put on our website. We are also going to write to a geographic the GSFs, the geographic strategic frameworks. So perhaps some other information that my colleagues can add.
Yes, indeed, we will make that possible. But if you already have ideas, you can already contact us directly. So no problem if our contact details are also in the call. So very much welcome any kind of information and suggestions, and then we will see how to make that available information available to the interested project promoters. Probably on our website would then be the case with a link from the calls page. Okay, any other questions?
I see that Ellen asked if we will link with Wetenschapswinkel. So me personally, I'm not familiar with this initiative, but it could be a very interesting suggestion that we can take a look at. So thank you, Ellen.
Okay, any other questions with regard to the different presentations that were given, in particular the last one? I think we are quite well on time because this session is supposed to close at 3 o'clock, but of course we don't have to fill the time if there are no questions left. We will add the relevant information from the chats. We will try to add it indeed in the material that is handed out, but maybe we will still rework some of the questions and answers so that we can put that into a sort of a document.
I see that Bert still has a question.
Yes, thank you. Since there are no others, and maybe I think you said it in your presentation, but I might simply have missed it. So you refer to the ongoing projects and then maybe also the external projects by other actors going on, that you can find them on the website. But so then we simply look at them on the website and we simply refer to these if there are any relevant links, or do we also need to find more information or contact the people involved or working in this project or in these types of actors? I missed that for a moment. So.
Yeah, of course, very much. The idea is indeed to look outside the boundaries and to have a look at where we can find synergies and complementarities. In the sense, okay, there are some inspirations that can be found on which projects, VLIR-US projects that are ongoing or that were organized at level of different partner countries or other intervention types. It's not necessarily needs to be SI or team. It can be other VLIR-US intervention types as well. So there we try to provide as much as info that you can find via these country reference frameworks. There you will also find a link to the focus domains of the other Belgian actors per country. Eventual links with Enabel will also be included, added there. But on the other hand, of course, in the setting where you will be working on, there might be a lot of different non-VLIR-US, other relevant initiatives, EU and other, that you can try to match. But that's a bit up to you in the context analysis, in the stakeholder analysis, to see what links can be made. Of course, try to, in a sense that we know that for an SI or a team concept note, it's not possible to go about to do an enormous in-depth analysis. That will not be easy, but at least try to see where there are possibilities, and if we can help out with some contacts, we can of course do so. Any other questions or something? That is, you can also still, of course, in the call, our contact addresses are included. You can contact VLIR-US for generic questions related to partner countries, country reference frameworks, other elements that you, and of course at the level of your own university association, we included the contact addresses of the ECOs of the different universities. They address the universities and the universities of arts and applied sciences within their association. So they're also your first contact point, because also the whole submission process is guided via the ECOS of the University Association. So you have different persons that you can contact depending on the nature also of your question. You can also contact us, of course. Okay, and we hope to still further develop our website and make available these questions from other actors. This is also a process we are learning in this. We hope towards next calls to be able to develop on this and to also make sure that it's not only VLIR-EOS, but that we make very clearly the link also with the thematic GSF. Now, there are a certain number of discussions and tools that still need to be developed after the 1st of January also. So not everything will be ready for this call. No other questions? Then if everybody agrees, we would like to go about closing this session. And I would like to thank you all for participating. Thank my colleagues for all the preparations, everybody who was involved. Thank also the ECOS and GEO that are present and that will also play a very important role in guiding the academics. So thank you all. Very happy that there was such a broad audience, and we will of course make sure that we record that we make available the video. We will probably edit some elements still to make sure that it's so it will not be today, but as soon as possible we will make everything available on the website.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.